Have you ever wondered why some people seem to glide through stress while others get overwhelmed by the smallest hiccup? Why certain individuals can focus like laser beams while the rest of us feel like our minds are ping pong balls bouncing between 1,000 different thoughts? The answer might be simpler than you think, and it's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. Today, we're diving deep into the science of meditation, not the mystical, sit on a mountain for decades version you might imagine, but the real, measurable, brain changing practice that's been revolutionizing how we understand the mind. We're going to unpack exactly what happens in your brain when you meditate, why it works so incredibly well, and most importantly, how you can use this knowledge to build a practice that actually fits your life. Now, before we go any further, I need to address something crucial. When most people hear the word meditation, they picture someone sitting cross legged with their eyes closed, maybe humming or chanting something in a language they don't understand. But here's the thing that might surprise you: that's just one tiny slice of what meditation actually is. In fact, some of the most powerful meditative practices happen with your eyes wide open, walking around, or even while you're having a conversation. The reason this matters is because meditation isn't really about sitting still. It's about training your brain to do something it's naturally terrible at, paying attention to one thing at a time. And once you understand how this training works at the neural level, you'll realize why meditation is one of the most potent tools we have for upgrading virtually every aspect of human performance. Let me paint you a picture of what's actually happening inside your skull right now. As you're listening to this, your brain is processing thousands of pieces of information every second. There's the sound of my voice, but also maybe traffic outside, the feeling of your clothes against your skin, thoughts about what you need to do later, memories from yesterday, concerns about tomorrow. Your brain is like a hyperactive DJ mixing dozens of tracks simultaneously, and somehow you're supposed to make sense of it all. This is where something called your default mode network comes into play. Think of it as your brain's screensaver, the program that runs when you're not actively focused on anything specific. And here's the kicker: research has shown that when this default mode network is highly active, people report being less happy. There's actually a famous study called "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind" that found something remarkable. The researchers pinged thousands of people throughout their day, asking what they were doing and how they felt. What they discovered was that people were significantly happier when they were fully engaged in whatever they were doing, even if that activity wasn't particularly pleasant. In other words, being present, being fully engaged with your current experience, is one of the strongest predictors of happiness. Not what you're doing, but how present you are while you're doing it. This is why someone can be miserable while on vacation if their mind is elsewhere, and why someone else can find joy in washing dishes if they're fully absorbed in the experience. Now, this is where meditation becomes incredibly interesting from a neuroscience perspective. When you meditate, you're essentially training three specific brain networks that work together like a highly coordinated team. The first is your prefrontal cortex, sitting right behind your forehead. This is your brain's CEO, the part that makes executive decisions and controls where you place your attention. The second is your anterior cingulate cortex, which acts like a translator between your body and your mind, constantly monitoring what's happening internally and deciding whether it makes sense given your external environment. The third is your insula, which creates a real time map of everything happening in your body, from your heartbeat to the temperature of your skin. These three regions are constantly having a conversation, trying to figure out what's going on inside you and whether it matches what's happening around you. When you're anxious, for instance, your heart might be racing, even though you're sitting safely in your living room. Your insula notices the racing heart. Your anterior cingulate cortex says, "This doesn't match our environment," and your prefrontal cortex tries to make sense of it all. Sometimes this works beautifully, and sometimes it creates a feedback loop that makes everything worse. Meditation is essentially strength training for this neural conversation. When you practice focusing your attention on one specific thing, whether it's your breath, a point in space, or even a walking meditation where you focus on each step, you're teaching these brain regions to work together more efficiently. You're upgrading your brain's operating system. But here's where it gets really fascinating. There are actually two completely different types of meditation, and they train your brain in opposite directions. The first type focuses your attention inward on things happening within your body. This includes breath work, body scans, or focusing on that spot behind your forehead that meditation traditions call the third eye center. The second type focuses your attention outward on things in your environment. This might be focusing on a tree, watching clouds, or practicing what's called open awareness, where you simply observe whatever's happening around you. Now, you might think that inward focused meditation is always better because it helps you get in touch with yourself. But that's not necessarily true, and this is where the science gets really practical. Some people are naturally very aware of their internal state. They notice every shift in their heart rate, every sensation in their stomach, every change in their breathing. For these people, more inward focused meditation might actually increase anxiety rather than reduce it. They're already paying too much attention to their internal state, and what they need is practice focusing outward. On the flip side, some people are naturally disconnected from their internal experience. They might not notice they're stressed until they're completely overwhelmed, or they might push through physical discomfort without realizing they need to rest. These people would benefit more from inward focused practices that help them tune into their body's signals. The key insight here is that effective meditation isn't one size fits all. It's about understanding where you naturally tend to place your attention and then practicing the opposite. This creates what we might call attentional flexibility, the ability to consciously direct your focus wherever it's most useful in any given moment. This brings us to something really important about how meditation actually works. Most people think meditation is about achieving some blissful, thought free state where your mind becomes perfectly calm. But that's not what the research shows at all. In fact, studies of expert meditators, people who've been practicing for decades, reveal something surprising. They don't have laser focused attention that never wavers. Instead, they've gotten incredibly good at noticing when their mind wanders and bringing it back to their chosen focus point. Think about it like this: meditation isn't about having a mind that never wanders. It's about building a mind that notices when it wanders and can redirect itself quickly and gently. Every time your mind drifts during meditation and you notice it and bring it back, that's not a failure. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're literally strengthening the neural pathways responsible for attention control. This reframe is crucial because it changes everything about how you approach practice. Instead of getting frustrated when your mind wanders, you can actually celebrate it. Each time you notice your attention has drifted and you guide it back, you're doing a mental rep, strengthening your focus like a muscle. The wandering isn't the problem. Not noticing the wandering is the problem. This understanding also explains why even very short meditation sessions can be incredibly beneficial. You don't need to sit for an hour to get results. Even 3 to 5 minutes of focused attention practice can begin to rewire your brain's default patterns. In fact, research has shown that people who do just 13 minutes of daily meditation for 8 weeks show measurable improvements in attention, memory, mood, and emotional regulation. But here's something that might surprise you. The benefits of meditation don't just happen during the practice itself. The real magic occurs in how meditation changes your baseline state, your default way of being in the world. Regular meditators develop what researchers call trait changes, not just state changes. This means that even when they're not actively meditating, they tend to be more present, less reactive, and better able to regulate their emotions. This happens because meditation literally rewires your brain. It increases the density of gray matter in areas associated with attention and emotional regulation. It strengthens the connections between the prefrontal cortex and other brain regions, giving you better top down control over your thoughts and reactions. It even changes the default mode network we talked about earlier, making it less likely to pull you into unproductive mind wandering. Now, you might be wondering about breathing techniques and whether they matter. The short answer is yes, they matter enormously, but probably not for the reasons you think. Your breathing pattern during meditation isn't just something to focus on, it's actually a powerful tool for shifting your nervous system into specific states. Here's the key principle. If you want to become more alert and focused during or after your meditation, emphasize your inhales. Make them longer or more vigorous than your exhales. If you want to become calmer and more relaxed, emphasize your exhales. Make them longer or more active than your inhales. If you want to maintain your current state of alertness, keep your inhales and exhales roughly balanced. This isn't mystical, it's pure physiology. The neural circuits that control breathing are directly connected to the brain regions that regulate alertness and calm. When you deliberately control your breathing pattern, you're essentially giving your nervous system specific instructions about what state you want to be in. But here's something really important to understand. The more complex your breathing pattern, the more attention it will require. If you're doing box breathing, where you inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4, that's going to demand a significant portion of your attention just to maintain the pattern. This isn't necessarily bad, but it means you'll have less attention available to focus on other aspects of your meditation. This is why I generally recommend starting with natural, cyclic breathing, where inhales simply follow exhales in a steady rhythm. This allows your attention to focus on other things, like the sensation of breathing or a visual focal point, without getting caught up in complicated breathing mechanics. As we continue this exploration of meditation science, we'll dive deeper into specific practices you can implement, how to tailor your approach based on your goals, and some surprising findings about how meditation can actually replace lost sleep and enhance performance in ways you might never have imagined. But for now, I want you to start thinking about meditation not as some esoteric practice, but as a practical technology for training your brain to work more effectively. The question isn't whether meditation works. The science on that is crystal clear. The question is how to make it work best for you, and that's exactly what we'll be exploring as we go deeper into this fascinating intersection of ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience. The next piece of this puzzle involves understanding something that most meditation teachers won't tell you, but that the research makes crystal clear. There's a hidden continuum in your brain that determines whether meditation will help you or potentially make things worse. It's the difference between what neuroscientists call interoception and dissociation, and where you sit on this spectrum changes everything about how you should approach your practice. Let me explain what I mean. Interoception is your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. Can you feel your heartbeat without taking your pulse? Do you notice when your stomach is getting full before you're uncomfortably stuffed? Are you aware of tension building in your shoulders before it becomes painful? Some people are naturally gifted at this internal awareness, while others are completely disconnected from their body's signals. On the opposite end of this spectrum is dissociation, which sounds scary, but is actually a normal part of human experience. Dissociation is when you're somewhat disconnected from your immediate bodily experience. Think about when you're driving a familiar route and suddenly realize you don't remember the last 10 minutes, or when you're so absorbed in a movie that you forget you're sitting in a theater. Mild dissociation isn't pathological, it's actually adaptive in many situations. The problem arises when people get stuck at one extreme or the other. If you're hyper aware of every bodily sensation, you might become anxious about normal fluctuations in your heart rate or breathing. You might interpret routine digestive sounds as signs of illness or become so focused on internal sensations that you struggle to engage with the world around you. On the flip side, if you're too dissociated from your body, you might ignore important signals like hunger, fatigue, or stress until they become overwhelming. Here's where this becomes crucial for meditation. Traditional meditation practices, the kind where you close your eyes and focus on your breath or scan your body, push you toward the interoceptive end of the spectrum. They increase your awareness of internal sensations. For someone who's already hyper aware of their body, this might actually increase anxiety rather than reduce it. It's like turning up the volume on a stereo that's already too loud. This is why some people try meditation and report that it makes them more anxious or restless. It's not that meditation doesn't work, it's that they're using the wrong type of meditation for their particular nervous system. If you're someone who's already very much in your head and in your body, what you need is practice focusing outward, not inward. This brings us to a simple but powerful assessment you can do right now. Sit comfortably and close your eyes for about 30 seconds. Pay attention to what happens. Does your mind naturally drift to bodily sensations, your breathing, thoughts about yourself, or internal experiences? Or does it get pulled towards sounds in your environment, wondering what's happening around you, or feeling restless because you can't see what's going on? If your attention naturally goes inward when you close your eyes, you're probably more interoceptively dominant. If you find yourself distracted by external sounds or feeling antsy about not being able to see your surroundings, you're likely more exteroceptively oriented. Neither is better or worse. They're just different starting points that require different approaches. For interoceptively dominant people, I recommend starting with eyes open meditation practices. Find a spot on the wall or a tree outside your window and practice focusing your visual attention there while maintaining awareness of your breathing. This trains your brain to balance internal and external awareness rather than diving deeper into your already active internal landscape. For exteroceptively dominant people, traditional eyes closed practices focusing on breath or body sensations will probably be more beneficial. You're training your brain to tune into signals it normally ignores or undervalues. But here's where the science gets really interesting. The goal isn't to become permanently balanced between interoception and exteroception. The goal is to develop what we might call attentional agility, the ability to consciously shift your focus along this spectrum depending on what the situation requires. Sometimes you need to be highly attuned to your internal state. If you're about to give an important presentation, noticing that your heart rate is elevated can help you take a few deep breaths to calm down. If you're feeling unusually fatigued, tuning into your body might reveal that you're getting sick and need to rest. Other times, you need to be focused outward. If you're having a conversation with someone who's upset, getting too caught up in your own emotional reactions might prevent you from being truly present for them. If you're driving in heavy traffic, being overly focused on your internal anxiety might make you miss important external cues. The most mentally healthy and emotionally resilient people are those who can fluidly move along this spectrum as needed. They can tune into their body when it's providing useful information, and they can shift their attention outward when the situation calls for external focus. This flexibility, more than any fixed state, seems to be what meditation is really training. This understanding completely changes how you might approach a daily practice. Instead of always doing the same type of meditation, you can do a quick assessment each time you sit down to practice. Are you feeling scattered and overly reactive to your environment? Try an inward focused practice. Are you feeling stuck in your head, anxious, or overly self focused? Try an outward focused practice. This dynamic approach also explains why meditation can be so effective for mood regulation. Depression often involves excessive self focus and rumination, getting trapped in negative thought loops about yourself and your life. Practices that shift attention outward can interrupt these patterns. Anxiety often involves hypersensitivity to internal sensations, interpreting normal bodily fluctuations as signs of danger. Practices that help you relate to these sensations differently, or that shift attention away from them entirely, can be incredibly helpful. Now, let's talk about something that most people get wrong about meditation: the role of effort. Many people think meditation should feel effortless, like floating on a cloud of blissful calm. But the research on expert meditators reveals something quite different. Effective meditation involves a specific type of gentle effort, like the effort required to repeatedly redirect a friendly but distractible puppy. When your mind wanders during meditation, which it will constantly, the key is not to force your attention back with harsh mental commands. Instead, you want to develop what some teachers call kind firmness. You notice the wandering without judgment, and you gently guide your attention back to your chosen focus point. It's less like yanking a dog on a leash and more like gently calling it back to your side. This quality of attention, this gentle but persistent redirection, is actually what creates the neuroplastic changes that make meditation so powerful. Every time you notice your mind has wandered and bring it back, you're strengthening the neural networks responsible for attention regulation and cognitive control. You're literally building a stronger, more flexible brain. This is why meditation teachers often say that noticing your mind has wandered is not a mistake. It's the moment of awakening. It's the moment you become conscious of your mental patterns rather than being unconsciously controlled by them. And it's this repeated practice of conscious redirection that gradually changes your baseline state of awareness. But here's something that might surprise you. The benefits of meditation aren't limited to the time you spend in formal practice. Some of the most profound effects happen when you start applying meditative awareness to everyday activities. This is sometimes called informal meditation or mindfulness in daily life, and it might be even more transformative than sitting meditation. Consider something as simple as washing dishes. You could wash dishes while your mind is completely elsewhere, thinking about work problems or planning your weekend. Or you could wash dishes with full attention, feeling the warm water on your hands, noticing the texture of the soap, being present with the simple act of cleaning. Both approaches get the dishes clean, but only one trains your brain for greater presence and less mental wandering. This application of meditative awareness to routine activities is where the rubber really meets the road. It's one thing to be mindful during a formal meditation session when you're specifically trying to be present. It's another thing entirely to maintain that quality of attention while you're stuck in traffic, having a difficult conversation, or dealing with a stressful deadline. The research suggests that people who develop this capacity for everyday mindfulness show some of the most dramatic improvements in well being and life satisfaction. They're not just calmer during meditation, they're more resilient, more creative, and more emotionally balanced throughout their entire day. This is because they've learned to interrupt the default mode network's tendency toward mental wandering and unconscious reactivity. Instead of being pulled around by every thought and emotion, they've developed the ability to step back, observe what's happening in their mind, and choose how to respond rather than simply react. Think of it this way: most of us live our lives somewhat unconsciously, on autopilot. We react to situations based on old patterns and habits, often without even realizing we have a choice. Meditation, whether formal or informal, is about waking up from that autopilot state and reclaiming conscious control over your mental processes. This brings us to one of the most practical questions about meditation. How long do you actually need to practice to see real benefits? The answer might surprise you because it's both shorter and longer than most people think. On the shorter end, Research shows that even single sessions of meditation can produce measurable changes in attention and emotional regulation. A 10-minute meditation can reduce cortisol levels, improve focus for hours afterward, and increase activity in brain regions associated with emotional balance. So you don't need to meditate for years to start experiencing benefits. But here's the longer perspective. The most profound benefits of meditation come from consistency over time, not from the length of individual sessions. Someone who meditates for 5 minutes every day for a month will likely see more lasting changes than someone who does a 2 hour session once a week. This is because meditation is fundamentally about retraining your brain's default patterns, and that kind of neuroplastic change requires repetition over time. The sweet spot, according to most research, seems to be somewhere between 5 and 20 minutes of daily practice. This is long enough to work with your mind's tendency to wander and practice the skill of gentle redirection, but not so long that it becomes a burden that prevents consistency. However, there's an important caveat here that most meditation apps and teachers don't mention. The relationship between meditation and sleep is more complicated than many people realize. While meditation can certainly help with stress reduction and relaxation, doing certain types of meditation too close to bedtime can actually interfere with sleep. This happens because most traditional meditation practices are actually focus building exercises. They train your brain to be more alert and attentive, which is the opposite of what you want when you're trying to fall asleep. Falling asleep requires a kind of letting go, a release of focused attention that allows your mind to drift into increasingly fragmented and dreamlike states. If you've ever tried meditating before bed and found yourself feeling more wired rather than more relaxed, this is probably why. You are training your brain to be more focused at exactly the moment when you needed it to become less focused. This doesn't mean meditation can't help with sleep. It just means you need to be strategic about timing and technique. Earlier in the day, meditation can certainly help reduce the stress and mental agitation that interfere with sleep. But right before bed, you might be better served by practices that promote relaxation rather than concentration. This is where something called yoga nidra, or non sleep deep rest, becomes incredibly valuable. These practices are different from traditional meditation because they're designed to help you defocus rather than concentrate. Instead of training your brain to maintain attention on one thing, they guide you through a systematic relaxation of both body and mind. Think of Yoga Nidra as meditation's softer cousin. While traditional meditation is like going to the gym for your attention, Yoga Nidra is like getting a massage for your nervous system. You lie down comfortably and follow gentle instructions that guide your awareness through different parts of your body, but without the effortful concentration required in sitting meditation. The research on these practices is fascinating. Studies show that a single 30-minute session of Yoga Nidra can increase dopamine levels in the brain by up to 65%. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure and reward, it's also crucial for motivation, focus, and the feeling that life is engaging and worthwhile. So these relaxation practices aren't just helping you unwind, they're actually restoring the neurochemical foundation for feeling energized and motivated. Even more intriguingly, some research suggests that these deep relaxation practices might actually be able to substitute for lost sleep to some degree. Now, before you get excited and think you can just skip sleep entirely, let me be clear: nothing fully replaces actual sleep. But if you've had a poor night's rest, a yoga nidra session might help restore some of the neurochemical balance that sleep normally provides. This happens because both sleep and deep relaxation practices seem to replenish similar neurotransmitter systems. They both reduce cortisol, the stress hormone that can keep you feeling wired and anxious. They both activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and repair. And they both seem to clear metabolic waste products from the brain, a process that's crucial for mental clarity and emotional balance. The practical upshot of all this is that you might want to think about meditation and relaxation as different tools for different jobs. If your goal is to build focus, emotional regulation, and mental clarity, traditional meditation practices are your best bet. If your goal is to reduce stress, improve sleep, or recover from mental fatigue, practices like yoga nidra or non sleep deep rest might be more appropriate. But here's where the science gets really interesting. The most beneficial approach might actually be to combine both types of practices. Some people find that doing a short focusing meditation earlier in the day helps build mental clarity and emotional stability, while doing a relaxation practice in the evening helps them unwind and prepare for sleep. This brings us to a crucial but often overlooked aspect of meditation: the question of when to practice. Most meditation advice treats timing as if it doesn't matter, but your nervous system is actually quite different throughout the day, and those differences can dramatically affect how meditation impacts you. In the morning, your cortisol levels are naturally high, which makes you alert and ready for activity. This is an ideal time for focusing practices because your brain is already primed for attention and concentration. A morning meditation can help set the tone for your entire day, training your mind to be more present and less reactive from the moment you start your daily activities. In the afternoon, many people experience what researchers call the post lunch dip, a natural decrease in alertness that happens regardless of whether you've actually eaten lunch. This can be a perfect time for a short meditation session to restore mental clarity and prevent the scattered feeling that often accompanies the afternoon energy crash. Evening is trickier because this is when your body naturally starts winding down for sleep. If you meditate too close to bedtime, you might interfere with this natural process. But if you practice a few hours before sleep, meditation can actually help process the stress and mental accumulation from the day, making it easier to relax when bedtime arrives. The key insight here is that meditation isn't just about the technique, it's about matching the right technique to the right time and the right nervous system state. This kind of strategic approach to practice can dramatically amplify the benefits while avoiding potential pitfalls. Now let's address something that often confuses people about meditation: the role of thoughts. Many beginners think the goal is to stop thinking entirely, to achieve some kind of blank, empty minded state. But this misunderstanding can actually make meditation much harder than it needs to be. Here's the reality: your brain is designed to think. It's like asking your heart to stop beating or your lungs to stop breathing. Thoughts are going to arise during meditation, and that's not only normal, it's inevitable. The practice isn't about eliminating thoughts, it's about changing your relationship to them. In everyday life, we tend to be carried away by our thoughts as if they were facts or commands. If you think, I'm not good enough, you might feel bad about yourself. If you think, that person is annoying, you might get irritated. We rarely question whether our thoughts are accurate or helpful. We just react to them automatically. Meditation teaches you to observe thoughts as mental events rather than absolute truths. You start to notice thoughts arising and passing away like clouds in the sky. Some thoughts are useful and worth pursuing. Others are just mental noise that you can let drift by without getting caught up in them. This shift in perspective can be incredibly liberating. Instead of being the victim of your thoughts, you become the observer of them. You realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices thoughts. This distinction might sound philosophical, but it has profound practical implications for how you navigate daily life. When you develop this observer perspective, you become less reactive to negative thoughts and emotions. Instead of immediately believing and acting on every mental impulse, you create a small gap of awareness where you can choose how to respond. This is the space where emotional intelligence lives, and it's one of the most valuable skills meditation can teach. But developing this observer awareness takes practice, and it's not always comfortable. Sometimes you'll notice thoughts or emotions that you'd rather not see. You might become aware of how judgmental your inner dialogue really is, or how much time you spend worrying about things that never happen. This increased self awareness can initially feel overwhelming or even discouraging. This is why many meditation teachers emphasize the importance of approaching practice with what they call beginner's mind and self compassion. Beginner's mind means staying curious and open rather than trying to achieve some predetermined outcome. Self compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness you'd show a good friend who was struggling. These attitudes aren't just nice philosophical concepts, they're actually crucial for effective practice. Research shows that people who approach meditation with self criticism and harsh judgment tend to see fewer benefits and are more likely to quit. Those who cultivate a gentle, curious attitude tend to stick with practice longer and experience more profound changes. This brings us to one of the most important but least discussed aspects of meditation, the concept of neuroplasticity. Your brain isn't fixed, it's constantly changing based on your experiences and behaviors. Every time you practice redirecting your attention during meditation, you're literally rewiring your neural circuitry. The brain changes that result from meditation aren't just metaphorical, they're measurable with brain imaging technology. Long term meditators show increased gray matter density in areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self awareness. They also show decreased activity in the default mode network, that collection of brain regions associated with mind wandering and self referential thinking. But here's what's really exciting: these changes don't take decades to develop. Some studies show measurable brain changes after just 8 weeks of regular practice. Other research does suggest that even single meditation sessions can temporarily alter brain activity in ways that improve attention and emotional balance. This neuroplasticity principle also explains why consistency matters more than duration. Your brain changes based on what you repeatedly do, not on how intensely you do it occasionally. A 5-minute daily practice will create more lasting neural changes than a 1 hour weekly practice because repetition is what drives neuroplastic adaptation. Understanding this can help you approach meditation with more patience and realistic expectations. You're not trying to achieve some mystical state of enlightenment. You're gradually training your brain to work more effectively. Like any skill, this takes time and repetition, but the changes are real and measurable. As we wrap up this deep dive into meditation science, I want to leave you with a practical framework for starting or refining your own practice. First, assess your natural tendencies. Are you more internally focused or externally focused? Do you tend to be anxious and hypersensitive to bodily sensations, or do you tend to be disconnected from your internal experience? Based on this assessment, choose practices that challenge your default patterns rather than reinforcing them. If you're naturally very internal, try open awareness practices where you simply observe whatever's happening around you. If you're naturally very external, try breath focused or body scanning practices that increase internal awareness. Start small and be consistent. 5 minutes of daily practice will serve you better than sporadic longer sessions. Choose a time of day that works with your schedule and energy levels and stick with it long enough to see results. Remember that the goal isn't to achieve some perfect meditative state. It's to train your brain for greater awareness, emotional balance, and cognitive flexibility. Every time your mind wanders and you bring it back, you're succeeding, not failing. Most importantly, approach practice with curiosity and kindness toward yourself. Meditation isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming more skillful at being the person you already are. It's about developing the capacity to respond rather than react, to choose rather than be controlled by unconscious patterns. The science is clear. Meditation works. It changes your brain, improves your emotional regulation, enhances your attention, and can even boost your immune system. But like any powerful tool, it works best when you understand how to use it skillfully. With the insights we've explored today, you're well equipped to build a practice that's both scientifically sound and personally meaningful. The journey of meditation isn't about reaching some final destination. It's about developing a different way of traveling through life. It's about cultivating the kind of mind that can remain calm in chaos, focused in distraction, and kind in difficulty. And the beautiful thing is, you can start developing these capacities right now, one breath at a time. The meditation practices we've explored so far represent just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what's possible with focused mental training. As we dive deeper into the practical applications, there's one particular approach that synthesizes everything we've learned into a single, powerful technique. I call it space time bridging, and it's designed to train your brain's ability to fluidly shift attention across different scales of awareness. Here's how it works. You're going to systematically move your attention through 5 different focal points, spending 3 full breaths at each location. This isn't just random attention shifting, it's based on a fundamental principle of how your visual system and time perception are interconnected. When you focus on things close to your body, your brain naturally parses time in finer slices. When you focus on distant objects, you automatically shift into broader time domains. Start by closing your eyes and placing 100% of your attention on your breathing or that third eye center behind your forehead. This is pure interoception, complete internal focus for 3 breaths. Then open your eyes and hold your hand at arm's length, focusing on your palm while simultaneously maintaining awareness of your breathing. You're now splitting your attention 50-50 between internal and external awareness for 3 breaths. Next, shift your visual focus to something about 10 or 15 feet away, maybe a piece of furniture or a plant, while still maintaining that background awareness of your breathing. You're training your brain to maintain internal awareness while engaging with your immediate environment. After 3 breaths there, look to the farthest point you can see, perhaps the horizon if you're near a window, or the far wall of your room. You're now balancing internal sensation with distant external focus. Here's where it gets interesting. For the final station, focus on the fact that you are literally a small body sitting on a much larger body that's floating in space. Try to maintain awareness of your breathing while simultaneously holding the perspective that you're on this planet Earth, which is itself floating in the vast expanse of the universe. This might sound abstract, but it's actually training your brain to hold multiple scales of awareness simultaneously. After 3 breaths in this cosmic perspective, close your eyes and return to pure interoception, focusing solely on your internal experience for 3 breaths. You've now taken your attention on a complete journey from the most internal to the most external possible focus points. This practice is incredibly valuable because it exercises your brain's ability to consciously navigate the attention spectrum. Most of us get stuck at one particular level of focus, whether it's obsessing over internal sensations, getting lost in our immediate environment, or spacing out into abstract thinking. Space time bridging trains the neural flexibility to move fluidly between these different modes of awareness depending on what the situation requires. But let's talk about something even more fundamental: the relationship between meditation and your brain's reward systems. When you understand how meditation affects dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with motivation and pleasure, you unlock one of the most powerful aspects of contemplative practice. Most people approach meditation thinking they need to feel good while they're doing it. They expect immediate relaxation, blissful states, or at least some pleasant sensations. But here's what the research reveals: the most transformative meditation happens when you learn to find reward in the effort itself, not in achieving any particular state. Think about it this way: when you notice your mind has wandered and you gently bring it back to your focal point, that moment of redirection is actually triggering small releases of dopamine in your brain. You're training your reward system to find satisfaction in the process of mental discipline rather than in external achievements or pleasant experiences. This is revolutionary because it means meditation can gradually shift your relationship to effort and challenge in general. Instead of only feeling motivated when things are easy or immediately rewarding, you develop the capacity to find fulfillment in working with difficulty. This translates directly into every other area of life where persistence and resilience matter. The key insight here is that meditation teaches you to derive pleasure from the quality of your attention rather than from what your attention is focused on. Whether you're watching your breath, observing thoughts, or maintaining awareness during daily activities, the satisfaction comes from the clarity and steadiness of awareness itself, not from any particular content. This understanding completely changes how you approach challenging meditation sessions. Instead of judging a practice session as good or bad based on how relaxed or blissful you felt, you evaluate it based on how present and aware you were able to be. Did you notice when your mind wandered? Were you able to redirect your attention with kindness rather than force? These become the markers of success. Now let's address something that confuses many people about meditation: the role of intention and goal setting. On one hand, meditation is often described as a goalless practice, a way of simply being present without trying to achieve anything. On the other hand, people clearly come to meditation with specific hopes and objectives, whether it's reducing anxiety, improving focus, or finding greater peace. The resolution to this apparent contradiction lies in understanding the difference between process goals and outcome goals. Outcome goals are about achieving specific results. I want to feel calmer. I want to be less reactive. I want to sleep better. Process goals are about how you engage with the practice itself. I want to notice when my mind wanders. I want to redirect my attention with gentleness. I want to maintain awareness without forcing anything. The research consistently shows that people who focus on process goals tend to see better outcomes than those who focus on outcome goals. This seems paradoxical, but it makes perfect sense when you understand how learning and neuroplasticity work. When you're focused on outcomes, part of your attention is always evaluating whether you're succeeding or failing, which creates tension and interferes with the natural unfolding of the practice. When you focus on process, you're fully engaged with the actual mechanism of change. You're not worried about whether you're getting the results you want. You're simply committed to showing up and practicing with as much awareness as possible. This relaxed engagement creates the optimal conditions for genuine transformation. This principle extends far beyond meditation into virtually every domain of skill development and personal growth. Athletes perform better when they focus on their technique rather than the scoreboard. Students learn more effectively when they focus on understanding rather than grades. The same dynamic applies to meditation. Focus on the quality of your practice, and the benefits will take care of themselves. Speaking of benefits, let's talk about one of the most remarkable discoveries in meditation research: the practice's ability to enhance neuroplasticity throughout your entire lifespan. For decades, scientists believed that adult brains were relatively fixed, that you were essentially stuck with whatever neural patterns you developed in childhood and adolescence. Meditation research has completely overturned this assumption. Long-term meditators show brain structures that look decades younger than their chronological age. They maintain gray matter density in regions that typically shrink with aging. They show enhanced connectivity between different brain regions, suggesting more integrated and efficient neural processing. Most remarkably, these changes can be observed in people who start meditating later in life, proving that it's never too late to rewire your brain. But the neuroplasticity benefits of meditation go beyond just maintaining brain health. Regular practice actually seems to accelerate your brain's ability to form new neural connections in response to any learning experience. Meditators don't just get better at meditation, they get better at getting better at things in general. This happens because meditation strengthens what neuroscientists call metacognitive awareness, your ability to observe your own thinking processes. When you can step back and notice how your mind is working, you can more effectively guide your attention toward whatever you're trying to learn or improve. You become more aware of when you're confused versus when you understand, when you're focused versus when you're distracted, when you're learning effectively versus when you're just going through the motions. This metacognitive capacity is perhaps the most transferable skill that meditation develops. It helps with everything from learning a musical instrument to improving relationships to advancing in your career. You become more conscious of your mental processes, which gives you more control over them. This brings us to one of the most profound but often overlooked aspects of meditation, its capacity to change your relationship with time itself. Most of us live in a constant state of temporal anxiety, either ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. We're rarely fully present in the actual moment we're living in. Meditation gradually trains your brain to find refuge in the present moment, not because the present is always pleasant, but because it's the only moment where you actually have any agency or choice. The past is already finished, the future hasn't happened yet. The present moment is where life actually occurs, and it's the only place where you can actually influence what happens next. This shift in temporal orientation has cascading effects on virtually every aspect of psychological well being. Anxiety is fundamentally about feared future scenarios. Depression often involves rumination about past events or disappointments. When you develop the capacity to anchor your awareness in the present moment, you're not eliminating these mental states, but you're no longer at their mercy. You start to recognize thoughts about the past and future as mental events happening now rather than as reality itself. This creates space around difficult emotions and thoughts, allowing them to move through your awareness without completely defining your experience. The practical implications of this are enormous. Instead of being controlled by your mental commentary about life, you start to live life more directly. You're able to respond to what's actually happening rather than to your interpretations and projections about what's happening. This is where meditation reveals its true power, not as an escape from reality, but as a way of engaging with reality more skillfully. You don't become passive or detached. You become more responsive and present. You're able to feel your emotions fully without being overwhelmed by them. You can think clearly without getting lost in thought. Now, as we near the end of our exploration, I want to address one final aspect of meditation that often gets overlooked in discussions focused purely on technique: the question of community and support. While meditation is often portrayed as a solitary practice, research suggests that having some form of community or guidance can significantly enhance both the sustainability and effectiveness of your practice. This doesn't necessarily mean you need to join a meditation group or find a teacher, though those can certainly be valuable. It might be as simple as having a friend or family member who also practices, or following guided meditations from a teacher whose approach resonates with you. The key is having some external support structure that helps you maintain consistency and provides guidance when you encounter challenges. The reason community matters is that meditation inevitably brings you face to face with the habitual patterns of your own mind, and some of these patterns can be uncomfortable or confusing. Having access to others who've navigated similar territory can provide both practical guidance and emotional support. This is particularly important during what meditation teachers sometimes call the dark night of the soul, periods when practice becomes difficult or when increased awareness reveals aspects of yourself that you'd rather not see. These challenging phases are actually often signs of progress, indicators that you're beginning to see through some of your psychological defenses, but they can be discouraging without proper context and support. The goal isn't to avoid these difficult periods, but to understand them as natural parts of the deepening process. Just as physical exercise sometimes involves muscle soreness as tissues adapt and strengthen, meditation sometimes involves psychological discomfort as mental patterns shift and reorganize. Understanding this can help you approach your practice with more patience and realistic expectations. Meditation isn't always pleasant, but it's consistently beneficial. The changes happen gradually, often below the threshold of conscious awareness, until one day you realize that you're responding to stress differently, or that you're more patient with difficult people, or that you're simply happier for no particular reason. These subtle shifts in your baseline state of being are the real fruits of meditation practice. They're not dramatic or flashy, but they're profound. You become someone who can remain calm in turbulence, kind in difficulty, and present in distraction. You develop what some traditions call unshakable peace, not because nothing disturbs you, but because you're no longer disturbed by being disturbed. As we conclude this exploration of meditation science and practice, remember that the most important step is simply beginning. You don't need perfect conditions, extensive knowledge, or hours of free time. You just need a willingness to sit quietly for a few minutes and practice paying attention to your own experience. Start where you are, with whatever capacity you currently have. Be patient with yourself as you develop this new skill. Trust the process, even when progress feels slow or unclear. And remember that every moment of awareness, no matter how brief, is contributing to positive changes in your brain and your life. The science of meditation reveals something beautiful about human potential. We're not fixed entities, doomed to repeat the same patterns forever. We have the capacity to consciously participate in our own development, to literally rewire our brains for greater wisdom, compassion, and well being. This isn't mystical thinking, it's established neuroscience. Your practice, however simple or brief, is an act of faith in your own capacity for growth and transformation. Every time you sit down to meditate, you're making a statement that change is possible, that awareness can be cultivated, and that the quality of your mind matters. In a world that often feels chaotic and beyond our control, this is a profound act of empowerment. The journey of meditation never really ends because awareness itself is inexhaustible. There's always deeper to go, always more to discover about the nature of your own mind and experience. But that's not a burden, it's an invitation to a lifetime of exploration and growth. So begin today, begin now, with whatever time you have available. Your future self will thank you for taking these first steps into a practice that has the potential to transform not just how you think and feel, but how you move through the world. The science is clear, the benefits are real, and the only thing standing between you and a more aware, resilient, and peaceful life is the simple decision to begin. And now, as your eyes grow heavier or your thoughts begin to wander gently elsewhere, let this be a soft place to rest. Whether you're drifting off to sleep or simply resting in stillness, listen to the soothing background sounds I prepared for you. Know that the patterns are all around you, steady, calming, quietly carrying on. Before you go, if this gentle explanation brought you an instant of wonder or relaxation, give this video a like and consider subscribing to the Sleep's Lush channel. It helps others find their way here too, and it means a lot to me. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? It's always surprising to see how far these calm little ripples reach. Until next time, may your sleep be lush.